Welcome back to the Troubleshooting Like podcast. I'm your host, Craig Poston, with my co-host, Jay Peters, where we talk about various topics, sharing our experiences on life and finance. What's up, man?
What's going on?
Not much. I would say another week, but we skipped a week, and now we're here.
Yeah, we always, because you said we got a dynamic schedule, so it's gonna be pretty hard to schedule something together, or at least get the time or dedicate the time to just even sit down for a couple hours and chop it up.
Yeah. So if people don't know why it sounds the timeline sounds kind of crazy, it's because we have those ones that we have in the background or say in our store. So yeah, we have some podcasts and stories that we will play when we can't, make the same time schedule together.
Yeah.
So that's actually helpful, and that way we don't miss any. But then it might sound odd if we're talking about something that was probably last year. But so,
yeah, I think that previous podcast on that we just put out was around the time you just closed on the property.
Yeah.
So I can't really remember. I don't think we mentioned what time frame that was in the video or in the audio, but that's just how far back it was.
Yeah, that was definitely December when I closed on that property of last year. Yeah. But just the plan again this year to actually try to close on another. Hopefully it'll be before December, but it was perfect because it aligned with my goals. My goals were to actually get a property by the end of the year or by my birthday, which is close to the end of the year or really the beginning of the next year.
Yeah. One thing I meant to mention to you, and I was re-looking at it today, there's a website called auction.com where it'll show you properties that are up for auction or upcoming for auction to where you could bid on, and some of them you can even do bids virtually, where like you can do it through the website or through the app. And there are, and it could be for here in San Antonio, or it could be like wherever you plan on getting other properties, or another one. I think if they're in-person ones, you can send a proxy for you to at least they'll physically be there, but you'll be in contact with them in some fashion, like on the phone, saying like, hey, this is this is the threshold. This is what I want you to go to, stuff like that for this specific.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Definitely would like anything to help me eliminate all the decisions you have to make when it comes to deciding on a property.
Yeah.
Or even just searching for one. I mean, your real estate agent helps you out with that process, but I mean, to be able to help them narrow it down too, say, hey, this is something I'm looking at. Can you tell me more about it? Because your real estate agent can help you with the research on that.
Yeah. I think it's very good to be granular on your search. And I think like when you're first starting out, whether it's, for your personal home or for an investment property, is that, what am I really looking for and stuff. And I think after you jump in and get like your first property, like I said, whether that's your personal or investment property, you kind of get those criteria knocked out. I said, this is like the area I want it to be in. This is like the type of floor plan. This is, beds, baths, this is square footage, hopefully these things are around it, like certain amenities and stuff like that. So I think if you can communicate those effectively to the real estate agent, it makes their job a little bit easier, and it helps the overall timeline go a lot better.
Yeah, because now I still ask questions. I'll send something I haven't really said in concrete, hey, I'm buying this, but I'll say, hey, what do you think about this property? Because I'll look at something and I'm like, okay, it looks like it's good. It looks like it might make sense. And then just ask more questions of, okay, what do you think about it? Then they can look at it or either call the actual listing agent for that property and ask more questions to see if this property is distressed, so it needs a lot of work to it, or if it's something that's already income producing or anything like that.
Yeah, like disclose whatever else is available that you personally probably wouldn't know, especially if you don't have a relationship with that other real estate agent. So
yeah. So it makes sense to have all the tools you can to narrow down all the things you need to know for the properties you want to purchase.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
Yeah, I would say, let's talk about goals, but I can tell you one thing: I have not been hitting any of my goals. I know my main goal, like I said, it was my birthday resolution goal, which all I did was just read up on that so I can start again, gaining more knowledge, analyzing properties, saving money, and eventually purchasing a property. And it's, again, I think I put properties, so I'm trying to figure that process out. So that might mean I have to buy something with at least 2 doors or more, just so I can meet that type of quota, unless I, purchase someone else's portfolio. That's another way to do it.
Yeah, I've definitely been seeing a lot of those. So if you've ever used the app or website called LoopNet, you can filter by multifamily properties. And sometimes when you filter by multifamily, they consider multiple single family homes within a portfolio as multifamily, at least by their filter, not necessarily by loans you can get. But
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of those, especially on the northwest side of town, where I think there was one where the portfolio was like 7 or 8 properties. I mean, I think all of them are single family homes. And I think it's going for like 2.6 mil, something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But I thought that was pretty cool where you can sell your entire portfolio, or you can purchase a portfolio of properties that already exist.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes that's like the better way, right? I mean, because if you think about even with a small business, if you purchase someone who's already went through everything and this business is established, it's a lot easier to purchase them to keep you from starting one up, which may fail within, as they always say, within the first 5 years.
Yeah.
And then it's the same with, your real estate. It might be easier just to purchase properties already there, existing income producing properties, versus trying to start up, which is a lot slower process, because you purchase one here, purchase one there, you save up money here, you save up money there, or you learn how to, invest other people's money, which I'm not at that level yet, and I would not want to mess with anyone's money. So that's why I'm like taking my own money that I'm saving and come up with other ways with the bank, to get there.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree, because I think a lot of people say startup is probably the longest part, or it takes the most amount of resources to do.
Yes.
Like you said, not just, monetary wise, but time wise, you have to learn all this stuff. You have to get the right people, or, make contact with the right people to get certain things started. Where if you get with someone that's already established, say, take on a business, take on their portfolio, get with them, see what they can provide you knowledge wise to kind of set you up in a better path, then it was definitely worth the maybe more monetary investment to save you the X amount of time it took them to get that.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I don't know. Did you want to talk about any goals of yours? And you kind of along the lines of me, like not really hitting them. I don't know.
Well, I mean, like it's like one of those spectrum type of things. Like you have goals and they may change, they may not. So right now, like financial goals, I think I'm at that point just because we're trying, saving up for the wedding and stuff. And I do want to focus on getting another property, but I'm still kind of on the fence on like what type of property, as in, I have a single family house, I have a couple duplexes. I would want to get a fourplex, or another thing I was thinking about is getting like a commercial property, stuff like that, renting out those to businesses rather than having a residential property. And then another thing I was thinking about was doing like Airbnb properties, and we were kind of talking about it earlier, where you buy like a vacation home or something out somewhere like, let's say, Florida, and Airbnb it for the time that you're not there and stay in it when you have to stay in it, or when you would get to stay in it.
Yeah, no, because that's definitely a dream of mine that I know can come true. It's just where and when, it's like one of those things. And when, because like you got to make sure that you're at a point where the bank is like willing to accept the risk on you. Because if you're talking about buying a vacation home, they already know you're not going to be there. So what are you going to do? Are you just going to make the payments, or is anyone going to stay there? Like it stays like that. So,
like, what's your strategy? Like, will you have a property manager? Will you self-manage it remotely?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. And then finding out that insurance companies like it when you have someone that can watch the property, or a relative that can watch the property, because they know that it won't just sit there and diminish.
Yeah.
Because I found that out as I was shopping for insurance, or even just, I think it was at the point I was already just saying, hey, I want to go with you. And that was one of the things. It was like a tidbit of information that the guy gave me. And it was like, if, because I think I mentioned about buying a property in Florida to him. And that's how we came up. We started talking about that. And he basically was saying that if you want to do that, it's better to have a property manager or someone that can watch it if you don't, because insurance companies like that, they might not accept you if you don't do something like that.
Yeah, where they can't validate that someone's going to take care of it.
Yeah.
Because they already know not.
Yeah. Because and then it was a lot, like I said, a lot easier where purchase this property, or that property that we were talking about on the last podcast there, which my family, which my sister, they all, mom and dad, they live near that area, so it was easy for them to like, hey, go check on this place if needed.
Yeah.
Before I turned it over to a property manager, so it was a lot easier to get the insurance company to accept that.
I mean, that's a good tip, though, and good thing to kind of watch out for, especially for people that want to do remote property acquisitions or investments, to where, because a lot of people, they like going to Florida for gratification. Like, let's say like the dust scenario. So, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to invest in it, but even the smallest detail could cause them to either not get the property or for people not to work with them, because you need insurance. Like that's like a requirement to get the loan before it closes, is that, hey, your insurance company has to give us this information before. So if that's like a make or break for a lot of people, then it's worth annotating and learning.
Yeah. And I think another thing too that makes it slow with purchasing is if you look at it from a conservative view, instead of like, okay, I'm willing to risk it all, where if you got the down payment, you got the closing costs, but what about renovation costs? Do you want to keep, slow down your process where you're making payments and take away money, from whatever you're doing? And yes, you can always pull from credit cards, whatever else, right? You can do deals with the bank of the after value.
Yeah.
You have to repair value. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, that where you could work that all in a deal. Again, something I'm not there yet. That's why I try to work with other experienced real estate investors so I can figure this out. But that is something to think about when I'm trying to purchase a property, a portfolio, whatever. But that's one of the things I think about, is just being a little conservative, where I have the renovation money ready to go too, along with it, and then where it doesn't mess with any of my other money, because I keep separate accounts.
Yeah. Right. But, man, other than finance stuff, like health wise, I just saw my doctor recently this past week, and everything seems to be fine. So I don't think a lot of people do it, and maybe it was just my view that a lot of people don't do like those annual checkups like they should. They go when they're sick, or they just avoid the doctor in general, because I don't know, maybe they were taught to just avoid doctors, or they don't like paying doctor bills. But I think it's good to do like annual checkups, and it doesn't have to be like a long one. Like mine was maybe like 15 minutes. Like, hey, check your reflexes, check your stuff, go over your medical history, stuff like that. Do you feel any better? Do you feel any worse? Scales of 1 to 10, or does these certain body parts or muscles hurt?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people, man, maybe it's not a lot of people, maybe it's just people that I'm more familiar with, don't do that. And so like when they go to the doctor, they have like a lot of anxiety about it, as in like, they're going to find something wrong because I haven't gone, or I don't go because all they're going to do is find something wrong.
Yeah. No, I definitely believe in the annual reviews by the doctor, because I keep one set up. I like my doctor. He's pretty cool. And then he does the full out test on me, every year, and tells me that, I'm a fat ass and I need to, get my life together. No, he's not that harsh, but he's like, he's basically, you just say, hey, you need to watch your numbers or whatever. And I think things are different now that I'm not on active duty, where I used to, I worked out twice a day, versus now I like work out maybe 3 or 4 days out of the week, so the body has to adjust to all those different things.
Yeah. And especially with like different weather or different climates, like here in San Antonio, there's a lot of humidity and heat. A lot more allergens in the air, but let's say like,
yeah, I definitely don't like going outside as much during when it's super hot but when the allergies are getting bad here. But in Germany, it was pressure. The air was so much better there. I mean, yes, you have your pollen and everything else, because they have a lot of trees, a lot of greenery. But it was just something when you breathe in the air. It's like I go for a run. I was energized.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I went for a run when I got here in San Antonio, I was like, man, I feel heavy. Yeah. Like everything was, I feel like, and I know it was still in good shape, but I was like, everything felt heavy.
Running here in San Antonio, like I think if you really want to train to run someplace, either do it here or do it like Colorado. Because in Colorado, of course, like the altitude rate is very high.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of people like to train there, especially in the cold where it's hard to breathe. But here, then you go from a place where it's like maybe not as cold or not as hot. You come here, and maybe it's the humidity too, but you start running, you feel it like almost instantly. So I think this would probably be a great place to train, and then go someplace where it's, has better consistent weather.
Yeah. I mean, but all in all, yeah, you're right. Health is wealth, right? Yeah. You gotta be part of all of it. You can't just like work on your financial life. You can't work on, certain other areas of your life. You gotta do it all if you want to make it somewhere.
Yeah, well, you can, right? Like you definitely see people that are out of shape, but they have a lot of money, and then vice versa, where they are in really good shape, but they may not have a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, I got that. Yeah, but if you want it to really work together, because like think about it, if you're not healthy but you have a lot of money, how long will you get to enjoy that money?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, and if you're in shape, how long will you really be broke, right? You don't know.
Yeah.
It's yeah. So because using that motivation of how you like to stay in shape, because that's something you're willing to endure something, and you have a goal.
Yeah.
You can always use that to get ahead.
That's why I like making a lot of allusions to fitness, because, in fitness, you go through a lot of resistance, especially if you do resistance-based training. And, when you're working out, it never really feels great to work out, right? There's always some like external factor that's like, it hurts, right? Like running doesn't feel great for the entire time, right? Well, lifting weights doesn't always feel great, but then you kind of get used to it not feeling great. And just like in life, like things don't always work out. Things are going to be painful. I think if you expect the pain, like how working out, you expect pain, then your outlook or your reactions would be a little bit different.
Yeah. All right, man. We want to, get down to our main topic. All right. This one is called Success Requires Sacrifice, which is very true. Unless somehow you were given everything, but then is that true success? Yeah. But I really I like this title. It definitely speaks to me, because it is truly that, like, anything that you want requires some type of sacrifice. I can't remember whose title this is, because that's something I believe it too.
Yeah. I think this might have been mine, but no, I just pulled stuff. So kind of going over it. So success often requires sacrifice because it involves making choices and prioritizing certain things over others. So, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit before, where, if you're in school and, really focusing on school and getting into your education and getting a degree, you may not be able to go out and socialize as often as you would want to, right? I'm not saying you can't socialize, but if the primary goal is to get the degree and not, have a great time with the peers, then you'll have to spend more time studying or more time working on projects, papers, whatever it is. So while you're sacrificing some social time with your friends or peers, it's worth it, because your definition of success is getting the degree and moving forward with your life into whatever career path you want.
Yeah, no, that's again, something I agree with. Everything again requires that sacrifice. When I'm out in school, how I used to have to drive back home because I preferred the job that I had. And when I say back home, I was driving like an hour and a half, like on the weekend. So I may got a chance to party a little bit throughout the week. And then after, Friday night, I was probably headed to my parents' home, because it was a job there I was working. And it actually paid me more money to just keep that job versus going with a minimum wage job or some other job over in the area where I was going to school. And that would definitely weigh on the party life. I mean, it keeps it at a minimum. I mean, it also gives you time to study too, because you're away from everybody. So it just depends on how you look at it. But again, it still all requires some type of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And so I can, again, that's why I can relate to this topic a lot, because everything takes a little bit of something. Even from the time I was trying to get a second degree, and I won't say I refused. I just didn't think it was worth my time to go home and take a nap and then go to class, because I was working an overnight job. But like, if I slept in the car, which I sacrificed my comfort, I would have enough energy to keep going throughout the day, so I could actually go to my classes. So that's again, it's something we always have to do to get ahead.
Yeah, and dude, you saying sitting in the car for like just taking a nap or something, that kind of speaks to me too, because when I was first going through my bachelor's, I would work on one side of town, do my work, and then I would go to the gym there. But I'd be so tired, I would, take like a 15-30-minute nap in my car, because I knew I would wake up, because it was uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I knew it was comfortable enough for me to take a short nap and then go work out and then go to school. And then, I wouldn't get done with school until like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and then go home, go to sleep, and then you start all over again.
Yeah. So again, it's always something that you have to sacrifice to get ahead. I mean, the same as like if you had roommates, right? It's also better for your finances, but then you have to give up privacy, like, so you always got someone at home versus, as you at your own apartment, you can walk around the way you want to walk around.
Right. I mean, technically you probably could, but your roommates probably wouldn't.
Yeah, they would appreciate that very much. So everything is going to require a little bit of that, a little bit of that sacrifice.
So the first one on this one is time and effort. So a lot of things people will have to sacrifice as their time. We kind of talked about that a little bit just now, but achieving success in any endeavor typically demands significant time, effort, and dedication. This may mean sacrificing leisure activities, social engagements, personal time in order to focus on pursuing and achieving your goals. So we kind of talked about it a few times throughout the different episodes of podcasts where, our schedules, whether it was, when we were in college or even now, can be very hectic. Maybe not hectic is the correct word, but they're very packed full of stuff. So like when I was going through college, like I said, I would go to work in the morning, go to the gym right after, and then go to school, and then, rinse, repeat, right? And those were pretty long days. I don't think I ever slept for 8 hours. I'm not saying people have to sleep for 8 hours, but if the typical recommendation is sleep for 8 hours and you're not getting it, then you may feel weird, feel different. But that's like a sacrifice you're going to have to make, it, and is that time, right? You're either going to have to, because I could have sacrificed the time to not work out, right? And maybe taking a little bit more time to get to school, or taking a little bit more for rest between work and school. But I did want to dedicate more time, or the time that I had, to my health and my fitness, and then, sleep when I could, or somehow backfill that sleep whenever I could.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think that might be a requirement, right, for success, the lack of sleep.
And I think you can do it in like seasons, right? For sports, right? Certain sports, they have on and off seasons.
Yeah.
So like if I'm in basketball, there's a different way I train when I'm on my on season versus when I'm on my off season. I might take a little bit more relaxing on my off season. I might, sleep in a little bit more. I might do a few more activities during that time. But as long as you know when to be in that specific season. And I think a lot of people, they'll hear, hey, this person isn't sleeping. Like Mark Wahlberg is a very famous person for this. Well, he'll have like those 4 o'clock, 4:30 wake up, and then work out. And then I think he'll do like 2 days during that time. But by the time, most people wake up, let's say if that time is like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, like he's already gone through a workout, probably done some like real work or business stuff, like way before a person's even got one alarm hit, right?
Yeah.
But he even explains that it's not forever, right? Like I do that during specific times, like when I'm doing a movie, or maybe when I'm off of a movie, this is my schedule. But it's not perpetual, as in 24/7 or every day out of the year I'm going to be doing a schedule. It's just I understand that when I need to get certain work done, this is how I can get that done, is by optimizing my schedule to where I wake up before people are able to get a workout in. I'm able to become more productive in the morning. And then when people are up and I actually need to make other obligations, as in like meetings or take care of the kids, whatever it is, I can still do those, but this time is something I need to focus on.
Yeah. No, it was more of a joke, because some people know how to balance it just right, because they know how to actually fit their schedule perfectly, where they actually get the sleep that they need to get going. I just say that because it seems like that's how my life has been. I've always had to sacrifice a little bit of sleep to get something done. I can always push past, your normal work hours. If you work 8 to 5, you're still working in some type of way, right? It might not be exactly at your job, the W-2 that you have. You could be in something else, and you're working after hours to get there, and which would take away some of your sleep. I mean, honestly, it could take away some of your workout time if you're trying to maximize your time. But again, like you said, it's in seasons, so like you're going to get back to working out because that's good for your health, and you're going to get back to sleeping because that's good for your health. But it's just something that you said, because when it comes to me doing certifications it requires me to lose some sleep, because once it gets down to crunch time, it's getting down to the exam. Now I want to make sure I know everything I need to know, so now I'm staying up a little bit later just to make sure I'm hitting high points and make sure everything is not leaving my brain before I get to the exam.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So we can, go down to the next one. It's the comfort zone, right? Success often lies outside of your comfort zone. It requires pushing yourself beyond your limits, taking risks, embracing challenges. This can involve sacrificing the comfort and familiarities of staying with your comfort zone in order to grow and achieve your desired level of success.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, they look for comfort, so whenever I ask some people about, what they want to do for their life or what they want to do professionally, is that they want to get something comfortable, as in something they can just show up for, do maybe the minimum, or maybe, do as much as they want to, and then that's it, right? To where they don't have to have a lot of huge stresses, a lot of responsibility, and then they're okay with it, right? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I think depending on your, definition of success, and especially in an economic portion of success, is that you're going to have to be uncomfortable at some point, right? And again, this is economic standpoint. So if you want monetary success, then you're probably going to have to learn some sort of skill or trade, right? That may take X amount of time. If you want to do it a lot quicker, then you're going to have to sacrifice certain times of sleep, working out, whatever it is, right? And then I've also learned, at least from my perspective, people that have a lot of responsibility get paid a lot because of that responsibility, as in because they're responsible for X amount of people, their work, maybe they're responsible for them to even get paid because, their job is what aligns to the business to get more clients or to get more money or funding. So now I have the responsibility to get these people paid. So I need to put in X amount of work, right? And none of that stuff is very comfortable. Like, it's not comfortable to put in, I don't want to say more work than is required, because it's the work that's required, but maybe more work than you're used to. And that's probably the comfort part. But I'm also one of those people where I would rather be uncomfortable or experience the uncomfortable portion to see, like, what am I willing to do? Like, how uncomfortable am I willing to go, and then scale back if I need to.
Yeah. And like you were saying earlier about the seasons, it's probably something we can't operate too long in that zone because if it might cause burnout. But again, you need to know where's your limit, right?
Yeah.
If you're good, especially if you use working out, right? For this example,
right?
All right. You basically, if you always go off of what you're comfortable with, you'll never make it to the next level. As I can say that for our physical fitness test that we had, we always, I would always make around the same score every time. And it was because it was comfortable.
Yeah.
But when I realized I wanted to get promoted, and you get more points for the
score on the physical test.
Yeah, for the score on the physical. Yeah. So you get more points, and that's more points that goes towards your promotion points, right? And then what I would learn to do is just push myself a little bit further, because I realized it was mental. Because especially if you run a certain speed, you used to run in a certain speed, you used to breathe in a certain way. How can you push yourself where you can still breathe but run faster? And that was one of the things. I guess it makes you feel like you're losing oxygen when you run faster. So you run, you could say it's almost like a sprint, right? You're jogging, but it's almost like a sprint. And what I have to do is realize I would take shallow breaths instead, and I wasn't losing breath. I was actually still taking the same amount of breaths, just faster. That's all. It's like and it was what. Yeah, so that's what I had to learn, that I had to be a little uncomfortable to get to that new zone that I was looking for. Yeah. So that was one way I knew I could relate to that. And always when it comes to anything mental, right, mentally challenging, you have to push yourself, because if you go off of what's comfortable, I mean, you'll never make it past, your peers, right? Because you need to, at some point, be a little bit better than the last time that you were there, right? Yeah. I mean, like I said, I definitely agree with stepping outside of your comfort zone, especially public speaking. That's stepping outside of your comfort zone. I remember how terrifying the first time I really had to start to do this stuff, especially when it's like you have to go off memory. And what I learned how to beat that one is try to own whatever I'm trying to say. And when I did that, it became a little bit more comfortable to stand in front of people to tell them something. And then stop thinking about what I'm saying. What I'm saying is being judged. Think about what I'm saying needs to get out, and they really need to hear this.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I think it's, for public speaking specifically, it's one of those highly feared things. I think it's like one of the number one fears that people have is public speaking. And it might be more and more as the oncoming generations, because we have social media, and it's funny because it says social media, but it makes people a little bit less social, at least in one-on-one conversations or in group conversations. But of course, behind a keyboard, very social. But yeah, no, I think a lot of people should get into public speaking. That's why so in high school and probably in middle school, they teach you a class called speech. And for a lot of high schools, it's a requirement for them to pass to get their degree or their diploma. And I think it's good, because I remember going through speech class, and I was definitely afraid of speaking in front of people when I was, always messing up. But that's the point of the class, is that it's there to improve you and to really get you out of that comfort, to to get you in front of people that, maybe you know them, maybe you don't, and maybe you're speaking about things that you're not fully informed on. That was another thing I liked about it, is that they would choose different topics that you probably wouldn't have even thought of, right? So one of them, you would talk about a celebrity and, all their stuff. One of them, you would talk about certain trades and stuff like that. But it was always something different, so you would never feel comfortable talking about one specific thing. And now you could have this different range of things that you could talk about. So you could talk in front of, an educational platform, in front of a professional platform. You could, inform, different students, or you can inform investors, whatever it is. There was different ways to speak and to learn who your audience is.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that leads to something I was thinking about while you said that. I recently had to go to my daughter's, well, it was both my kids, actually, their school, but I was actually speaking to one of my daughter's great. We basically, what is it, like career day? They call it career cafe.
Yeah.
They call it. Yeah. And what I had to do was actually tell them about what I do. And basically I focus more on the engineering side of it. So they would just see, or to tell them how, what they need to do to become an engineer. Which is funny is, like, I think what happened is they took a test or something like that to show their skills or whatever.
Like a mini ASVAB.
Yeah, something like that. And then, like, their skills showed that they were more interested in engineering, which is funny. He had a guy in there that was actually talking about the Army. But I was like, well, I can relate to you and I'll tell you this, and, explain that to him. But I was, that was, I won't say it was uncomfortable, but it was a little uncomfortable because it's kids and I don't know how to respond to kids, right? Like, and then how to break things down so they can understand it. So that I found myself, if I say a word, I made sure that I tried to relate it to something that they're used to, so I could get my point across. But that was interesting, and definitely I would say is out of my comfort zone at that point in time, which was great. She felt better about it after I did it, and didn't realize how well kids respond to, they actually respond really well. I mean, you get them involved, you have them ask them questions, give them the spotlight for a second, and you actually, kids are sometimes better than adults. I'll tell you that much.
I think it's because, like, as you grow up, you kind of gain certain anxieties. Like, I think if you ever notice, like, children, they'll speak all the time, right? It's not until, someone reprimands them or tells them, hey, you should stop talking, or whatever it is, or you're being a certain way, so please stop it. It's not until they get told that enough that they just stop. They either stop talking or they don't give up as much information as they would, right? Which is good, but that's why we were kind of talking about, like, who teaches your kids or who provides certain information to your kids is very important on, like, their.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of near and dear to my heart, because about someone coming to speak. Because when I was a kid and someone did that same thing for me, I think I almost got turned off from college a little bit, because hearing that you have to go to school for 8 years, but because it was veterinarian I was interested in, and that was one of the things they brought up. But when I spoke to them, I made sure to let them know that everything requires hard work. It doesn't matter how long you have to go to school, everything requires hard work.
Yeah.
So
even if you don't go to school, like,
it's
going to require some sort of hard work to get to wherever you want to be.
Yeah. And I mentioned business also, even though it almost sounded like I said business, but I was like, even if you want to start a business, you have to, it's hard work involved in that too, so I was trying my best to relate as much as I could to, what we do, without giving away everything that we do at work.
Right. And I think the benefit of talking to children is kind of like what you said, is you learn to talk to the lowest intelligence, but the least informed of what you have, as in, you explain things a little bit more into detail. You may not overspeak or you may not use certain acronyms, right? Because they may not understand them. And you may not be like, this is what binary is and stuff like that. But you say, like, hey, in IT, you work on computers, you have to fix them. You don't go into as much detail as you need to, right? You kind of play to the audience and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's good because you can, when I try to communicate, I try to talk to the lowest level as much as possible, because I know if I start going off the rails, then it doesn't matter what I'm saying, no one's going to understand me. So I'm not communicating properly, right? But if I break it down either slowly enough or properly enough to where the people understand me, then it's absorbed by more people that
Yeah. No, that was a learning experience. That was one that I was glad to have. Yeah.
All right. And then the next one is short-term gratification. Success often requires delayed gratification. It may involve making sacrifices in the present moment, such as foregoing immediate pleasures or indulgences in order to invest in long-term goals and reap greater rewards down. Right? We kind of hit on this a little bit, but I think a lot of people, they enjoy the short-term gratifications, as in the very immediate things. As in, I input something and I immediately get some sort of output. Like, and the thing I like about fitness specifically is that it's almost never sold that way. As in, it's like you won't get there within a week, right? You're just going to hit the gym and get a 6-pack right in a week, right? It definitely takes time. Of course, there's a lot of variables into how much time it would take, like diet, body composition, goals are, stuff like that. But I don't think anyone sells it. I mean, there are people that will sell like, hey, you can do this in 6 weeks. But the thing is that you can do it in 6 weeks, right? But it's not going to be done in 8 weeks, right? But you have to sacrifice a lot to get to those specific goals. Like if you're incredibly overweight and you want to get a 6-pack, yeah, you may have to cut down on your diet a little bit. You may have to do a lot more cardio, but there is a point where you will get there if you're willing to put in all that effort and all that execution to get there. And you may not see it right then and there, but I think that's also the beauty of fitness, is that it's something that you have to work on to get there. And a lot of people will say plastic surgery and stuff like that, and that's kind of like their selling point, is that why go to the gym, why diet when you could just get these surgeries and do it. But you also have to pay X amount of money, right? But I think if if it's worth getting, then it's going to take a good amount of time and effort to get there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I was just thinking about some of the things that like sacrifices. Just like, again, I think I've said it before on the podcast, I love cars. And it's one of the things that I would love to do is just keep constantly buying cars. But then where would that lead me if I'm not at my investment goals yet, right? Yeah. That's more of a pleasure thing, but working on my investments actually makes it where it'll be easier to afford those things that are for gratification. And saying it's sometimes hard to trick the brain to tell it, hey, this is more important. But the easiest way is, I've heard it before. It's just, if the money is meant for something, you kind of like push it into this certain account, allocate it for that, and it makes it harder to get to.
Yeah. I think Grant Cardone says that, whereas like, if you have a bunch of money, maybe it's not Grant Cardone, maybe it's someone else, or if you have money, like put it into something that, it looks like you don't have the money, like put it into like real estate, because it's not hard cash that you have right now.
Yeah.
And make sure you don't have a lot of money in your bank account, so that, you're still hungry enough to keep getting money for something or keep building.
And I do. And I think Grant Cardone did mention that, and it's probably other people too, but I can see that, because the other thing that makes you become defensive, you become defensive of your money too. Like, so now you don't want to push your money out when you need to, versus like, if you already know this is what I'm using this money for, it's going to this investment. And when you're broke, you're looking for more money. So it's like, all right, I need to go grab more money. And it kind of slows down the hunger. So yes, I do. I agree with that one. And I'm trying to think of other things that I've actually, because I've definitely sacrificed. Right now I reduced sugar. I can't say that I'm zero sugar, because it's kind of hard to say zero sugar.
Yeah.
Because if you notice, sugar is in like bread. So yeah, it's like when you actually look at it, it's like you really have to be very deliberate about picking your food.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at and the only way I'll give myself sugar is through fruit. Yeah. So that's the other way. So I was like, okay, I just have to have natural sugar, and sometimes it doesn't feel like enough, because you're so used to all those snacks. And so basically, that's what I've reduced, and I could feel the difference. And I'm not talking about in a positive way. I'm talking about like, yeah.
Those are like different sugar compounds, right? So like fruit is fructose, right? Stuff that you typically get from bread and pasta is glucose, right? So there's also like different levels of satiation, or where it settles you for hunger. But fructose, you probably have to eat a lot of fruit to get the same amount of fructose that you would get glucose from like bread or pasta. Because like, in a couple pieces of bread, you get like 20, 40 grams of carbs, and however much sugar is there. But with fruit, man, you could probably eat a whole watermelon and not get that much fruit.
Yeah, and I mean, just any food that you eat, you get glucose anyway, right? So if you eat healthy food, or if you eat something that's not so healthy, it basically you still get the same. It's just it burns differently in your body.
Yeah, it pulls it out differently. So
Yeah.
it takes more effort to pull the sugars out when you don't have it directly from a starch source.
Yeah, so that's definitely a sacrifice that I'm making right now. I mean, it's a lot easier with the sodas. I could keep away sodas, but it was with alcohol, and that was I mean, it's not so bad with alcohol. You can find other things to do with your time, or things that kind of trick your brain. Alcohol, yeah. So, because I remember when I was deployed, that was the one thing you're not supposed to have alcohol while you're deployed. And they would have, as we call them, near beers, so they're alcohol-free beers. And it was a good way to trick your brain that you're actually doing something, because it's like very small amounts of alcohol in it.
Yeah.
Some people,
Placebo effects, like
yeah. So it's funny because some people would not even touch it because they were like, it's not even real. I'm like, it gives me a little fake feeling. So like, you have like wing night. It make me feel like I'm at Buffalo Wild Wings, and then like I'll have my wings and my beer, but it's yeah, near beer. You just got the taste of beer. That's pretty much what it was. Yeah. So then the next one is opportunities and trade-off. Success may require making choices and trade-offs. You may need to prioritize certain opportunities or pass over others, which can involve sacrificing alternative options or pursuing a different direction in order to focus on what you believe and will bring you closer to success. Okay, yeah. So I was thinking about when it comes to certain loans, because that was earlier when I was thinking about like types of investments, right? So you may pick a certain loan, say an ARM right now, right? Some people are using ARMs to purchase properties, right? Yeah. So like a 5-1, 10-1, because I use a 10-1, and you have three ones, and they have to have you have a reason for using it, right? Because if you use it just to purchase a personal property or primary resident, you're thinking about it may not work the same. I mean, and if you're not familiar with that type of product, right? But if you use it for investments, you can kind of gear your brain to like, okay, all right, in 10 years, I need to refinance this property, or before 10 years, I need to refinance this property so I can get a fixed rate, so like you like the trade-off was to get the loan quicker, which that was the whole process of why I did a 10-arm. 10-arm was like, they set it up where this loan was almost instant. All right. All we need to do is qualify that you have the income, you have, good credit, all those good things. And in the home meets the appraisal value, we'll give you the money. And that was one of the trade-offs with, using that product versus using a regular 30 fix, which had a higher interest rate, because obviously at this point in time, we have higher interest rates. So some people are deferring to using the ARM rates, but you got to be ready to go. You know that you need a certain amount of money of equity in the home or property that you're purchasing with this ARM, because when it's time to refinance needs to happen, or you're going to pay that larger payment that's coming down the line. Yeah. So I don't know if you had something like that since.
Well, I wanted to know, you want to go over ARMs and stuff, because I mean, know what.
Yeah, well, and that's why I was kind of get a quick brief like that. All right, so a 3-1, right? So, that's a good question, right? That is something I have to look up, but
it's adjustable.
Okay, all right. So thank you, because I'm used to just saying it by the short, just like you get used to saying a lot of acronyms. Yeah. But you know what it means, but you don't know what it actually stands for. But yeah, adjustable rate mortgage.
Yeah, right? Adjustable rate. So adjustable rate mortgage it'll give you a timeline. So for yours, you said it was a 10-1. Right. So for 10 years, it'll stay at one rate, correct?
Yeah. So that's correct. So by the next 10 years, it would be at this one rate. But when it hits that 11th year, it would actually go to a different rate, or whatever rate that is available at the time, right? So if the rates change, that's the rate that you're going with. So, but if you want, and it's usually, most likely it's going to probably be the higher one, right? Not the lower one, because the bank wants to make money. Because after the first 5 years of you owning the loan, you will pay majority interest to the bank anyway. So if anything they can do is get you to pay more interest, so that's the way they're going to go.
Right.
But that's one of the sacrifices you'll have to make for that one. And yes, 3-1, same thing. So 3-1, where after 3 years, you should be paying a different rate. Also, I was hearing somebody else explain it, because it was it had, I think the first year it was something, but like from what I read, how it works is like from year one, you will make the same rate up until that fourth year, which would be that, that first year that you would actually change rates. But again, that's where people need to do more research, because from what I was researching my product because I wanted to know why the bank was trying to give me that versus give me a fix. But they were trying to get me the loan and get me the rate, and it actually made it where I didn't even have to make the full down payment. But it all, in the end, the bank makes money off this. But if you're using this product as more of an investment, then you're using it as a personal product, then it would make more sense to take all the little things that the bank are trying to give you where they're making money. Yeah. Because all you got to do is refinance it and put it in a way where now it's more and positive for you. The only issue is when you refinance, you basically renew the loan. So it's kind of like a restart.
Yeah. So, and to kind of go over, so with an ARM, you can start out at a lower mortgage for X amount of time. So if you did a 10-1, that means for the first 10 years, it's at a certain mortgage rate. Now, if you kept with the ARM for the 30-year mortgage, every year after that, they can adjust it, right? And typically, of course, it would be higher, like you stated. Now, versus a fixed rate mortgage where for the entire 30 years, it is one specific rate, right? Even if the rates outside of you change, it'll still be that specific one unless you refinance or into a different rate. Now, the rates could be, percentages, and that definitely matters a lot when you're trying to purchase a home or getting the buying power for a property, and both have their pros and cons. But like you said, there are trade-offs to one, because you're able to get an R, you're able to come in with a little bit less money upfront and with a less initial percentage rate, so that within the next 10 years, if rates get a lot better than what you currently have, you could refinance, you would be fixed for 30 years and you wouldn't have to worry for, X amount of time.
Yeah. And that's why, where that was as more of a trade-off to use that versus using it on a personal product. Like if it's a personal property, as ours, we use VA. Yes, we didn't have to make a down payment, but the interest rates also would always come with a better interest rate, and always low closing costs, things like that. And you can also still make a down payment while having a VA. It's just not required. So you can always put yourself in a better position so you can catch whatever rate that's coming up. So if that rates are probably going to drop and you have that 20%, because that's what I found out through talking to banks, as long as you have 20% of equity in a loan for that property, then you can refinance easily without putting any money down.
Yeah, typically they want 20-25% just to account for changes in pricing. But as long as you have 20%, you could refinance into a conventional loan. Typically, you can refinance into any loan. You could refinance to an FHA loan if you needed to, at least just to get your VA loan back. But, pros and cons, trade-offs.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like one of those things you have to read into it to figure out if that's the right thing for you. And that's where these opportunities come in, because you actually did the research and you understand, okay, I'm going to give a little bit because they're giving me something too.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the next one is personal development. So achieving success often involves personal growth and development. This may entail acquiring new skills, knowledge, or experiences, which may require sacrifices in terms of time, energy, or resources to invest in self-improvement, right? So, and I think like we both have like testaments to personal development, because that's literally what we focus on a lot, is that, or maybe there was a point in time where we realized the situation we're in is not the situation we want to be in for a long period of time. So what can I do for myself to get me out of the situation, right? And then at some point it'll probably become, what can I do to help my family get out of the situation or to put them into a better situation, right? So we feel, or we try to take as much ownership as possible to where the situation won't get better or the situation won't change until I change, until I acquire a new skill. I go to school, I, work for a trade, I gain more knowledge, or I invest, X amount of time and resources into this thing to then hopefully get better, hopefully find a better opportunity for like a monetary standpoint, get more money, or, get more freedom for my schedule to spend more time with my kids, whatever it is. Right. But, and I mean, everything we talked about is personal development, going to school, working on our craft, even though we're not at work, right? Trying to speak to people or like do public speaking or do uncomfortable things. It's all for the betterment of ourselves and in turn, hopefully the betterment of our family, community, etc.
Yeah, no, definitely personal development I think it takes the most sacrifice out of all. Investing in yourself can take money, can take time. It could take a lot of things. It also, again, you said with the family, I remember when it comes to certifications, if I'm getting down, it's crunch time, I don't spend much time with family at all. I'm probably either going to bed, then waking up in the middle of the night, and then, but I'm not really seeing them much. And then also, if I have to shut the door, do anything where I'm separated, or I mean, even my wife even told me, hey, just go somewhere else so you can study. But that's still us time taken away, right? That I'm not hanging out. She even told me, because it was a property I was looking at, and she was like, yeah, you get it and use half of it as your office so you can study, because that's how much I was studying. Yeah. Like, yeah, I mean, she just believes in stuff that that I'm going for. If I'm trying to do it, I'm trying to do it, right? So she knows that I'm always trying to get ahead in some kind of way. So, and it was just because when it comes to VA, that's where it came from. So VA, you have to you have to occupy the property for a certain amount of time before they allow you to use it for other things. Now, granted, I'm not sure how much they actually pay attention to this, but it was a way around it. She was telling me, hey, use it as an office temporarily until you get both sides rented, because it was basically talking about, actually, no, it was a quadplex. And basically she was like, just use one of the sides as your office. Or I say sides, actually one of the apartments as your office. And then that way you could say that you still live there. Yeah. So, yeah. So, like I said, she was helping me with my goal, what I was trying to do. And it was for VA, they allows a certain amount of entitlements. So I knew I would have to still put money down to do this regardless, but it was all a plan. It was something that you have to do, some type of sacrifice you have to do to get ahead. So there's, in a sense, it would have been like a 2-for investment. It was an investment for myself and an investment, like in myself, I would say, and also financially.
Because what you could do is, like, say, like you said, if it was a fourplex, if each unit was like a 3-bedroom, you could use one bedroom as an office and rent the other 2 rooms in that one unit, and then of course rent the other units out. And technically still be utilizing the property. Because so one of my buddies does is that he has 2 properties, they're both under VA, and he kind of just goes between them because he works near one and then he lives in the other one. So that's just the way he's used.
No. So, I mean, it's always, that's the thing though. Like, you might be sacrificing something, but it's always to get ahead. It's always to do something better than that you were doing last time. And I mean, and there's so many ways to skin the cat, right? You can, use different types of loans to get to where you need to go, or you can, just, I guess, cash, you certain amount of cash or whatever, right? I'm losing my words here. Yeah. Getting excited, talk about money. But yeah. So, I mean, it's you should just look into whatever you need to do, because when it comes to sacrificing your time, your money, your whatever it is, right? You have to look into what is the offset, what is the opportunity, whatever it is. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, they may not focus too much on personal development, because I don't know who actually has this problem, I couldn't tell you, but from some of the people I've interacted with, it's that they're not taking the time to really look at, their life, their situation, or where they're at. And maybe it's because they're comfortable with the situation they're in, or maybe they don't want to do more than what they currently are, but they're not looking to improve it more. So I don't think they're looking to, make those sacrifices. Like, they're okay with, going out with their friends and, making X amount of money, looking a certain way fitness wise, and not looking to improve upon that. Like, not everyone wants to get a 6-pack, right? Which is cool. Not everyone wants to make a lot of money, which is cool. Not everyone wants to provide for their family, which isn't really cool, but I guess.
Right. Yeah, I know, right?
But I mean, there are those people out there. I think that's probably more of a majority of the people, is that they're not looking to improve. So they're not looking to make sacrifices.
Yeah, and I can see, okay, you're trying to hit a certain comfort spot so you can focus that energy in another area. I can see that, because I thought of that, right? If you found a job that is less stressful, all right, then doesn't require much of you, which allows you to focus your energy in another area where you can spend more time studying, spend more time on research, trying to figure out where you want to go, what do you want to do. So I kind of get the comfort part, but it still puts you in a position where you have to be a little uncomfortable. So
yeah. Well, yeah, it's either you're going to be uncomfortable right now, or you're going to, at some point, that all those uncomfortable feelings will meet you, right? Yeah. Because, it may be uncomfortable to, not sleep as much, or, focus on trying to make money and stuff like that. But it's also uncomfortable not being able to make your bills, being stuck at a job that you don't like, being laid off because you're not improving, stuff like that, right? I think those are also uncomfortable. So there's also like that common saying where like fast food, right, while it's cheap or can be cheap to get, right, it's going to cost you in your health in the long run.
That's a true statement, man.
But I'll say it. So it is important to note that sacrifice does not necessarily mean compromising your well-being, your values, or relationships. It's about making conscious choices and trade-offs that align with your goals and priorities. Success is a journey that varies for each individual, and the sacrifices required will depend on personal aspirations and circumstances.
All right. Now we're getting down to our frugal and cheap. All right. We may have said this before in some way or fashion, but buying cash cars. I don't know. That I maybe just revisit it anyway. I think it's is it frugal or cheap?
Well, I think that the previous one we used, and I'm kind of thinking about it now, is buying used cars, or I can't remember.
That's what I said. It was along the lines, but I don't know if I said cash cars, because like cash cars to many people can mean different things to people. Yeah, cash car could mean hoopty. If you got good income, that means just buying a car in cash in general. So, when it comes to this situation, I still think it's frugal either way it go, unless, because what if your situation requires you to buy a cash car that is a hoopty? And the only thing is, you just got to have that, mental capacity to understand that if you're going to buy this car, it still could break down on you. So that means you need to go check it out first. Yeah. Don't just buy it because you can buy it.
Yeah. No, I think buying cash cars is also frugal, because at the end of the day, if you finance a car, you're not going to be paying for a appreciating asset or something that's going to gain. For most cars.
Yeah, most cars.
Yeah. There are those handful of cars that are appreciating assets, but most of them you probably couldn't afford with cash. But the ones you probably can, they're going to depreciate at some point. So when you look to sell it, whether you still have it financed or you have it owned outright, it's going to be a lot less than what you paid for it. So if you can save yourself, I don't know what auto rates are right now, but let's say 4 or 5% off of whatever you buy. So if you buy like a $20,000 car, you could save yourself like a few grand, not having to pay, throughout 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is, and just pay it outright in 20 grand.
Yeah, I mean, and like, again, I think I was looking this up, and it does make sense, right? So if you were to spend 20 grand on the cash car, right? All right, does it make sense? Because then, like, okay, I'm gonna go over here and take away 20,000 from my savings or from an investment I already have to go buy this cash car, which you could have used that same 20 grand to go purchase another property or do something else, right?
Yeah.
That actually gives you more money. But if you're in a situation where you can pay 20K, you're probably already making really good decisions where to put your money, hopefully. And I say that because some people might use a bonus, might use, whatever it is, right, to grab this. So, but for most people, if you're going to make a decision like that to pay cash for a car, hopefully you are in a good position with your investments also.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think it's frugal because of that. I mean, I even purchased a car cash, but it was more pleasure, right? I really wanted a project car.
Yeah.
And I paid $3,600 for the car. Yes, I had to put a little bit of work into it because of the fact that the person didn't tell me everything that was wrong with it. They just told me the one thing that I could clearly see was wrong with it. So that's why they told me it was wrong. It's like, hey, it does this. But once I got the car home, started looking through it, because I like working on cars, man, I saw it had more issues, but the issues weren't to the point where I was like, I hated the project. Actually, I love the project even more because of some of the issues. So it just depends on what you're looking for at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, even my wife's car. I mean, I was being nice because it was our anniversary. Actually, our anniversary was yesterday too. So actually, 2 years ago on this day, I bought her a car, but I basically took a car that I already had paid off that actually had a lot of value in it, and I took it, and pretty much I think I had a little bit left over, so I just financed that at a low rate. And then eventually just paid that off after a year because I just make payments slowly. And then, but again, it was like the same thing. It's like, okay, what could I have done with that cash from that car, right? Because if I didn't want the car anymore, I could have used that 20 grand because that's about how much equity was still left in that car. I could have took that and did something else with it. But again, that's, it's like one of those things. It's like, okay, make my wife happy Yeah. Or go out here and just go buy more investments. Either or, she would have been happy in the end. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely say it's more of a frugal thing, just because you'd be saving money in the long run with a depreciating asset specifically. Yeah, I wouldn't say the same about buying. I wouldn't necessarily tell someone to go buy a house in cash, because houses are typically an appreciating asset. So you would, for like, say if you bought a house for $100K, right, and you had $100K in cash, you can buy, probably a nicer house or a better house for $20K with the 20% down, or you could buy a $100K house, or you could buy multiple houses with, $20K down. So, and at some point they will appreciate, past what your equity is, and you would have some of this cash flowing and stuff like that. So that's an example where I would think I don't know if that would be frugal or cheap or anything, but I just think it wouldn't be as well thought out plan.
Yeah. But all in all, I think we agree that buying a cash car could be on the frugal side. Definitely not cheap. I know some people like to look at it that way, but it's not. It's a way to get ahead. If you can pay cash, you're not making X amount of payments to the bank with that certain interest rate. You could actually take that same money and put those same payments towards something else that could help you. So,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This is Craig and Jay signing off the Troubleshoot Life podcast. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.